Single dad's incredible free car repair reveals touching secret. Please marry my mom. 6-year-old steals the show. Jake wiped the sweat off his brow, the buzz of the garage blending harmoniously with the purr of the engine bay. It was another long day at Westside Auto, tucked away in a forgotten corner of town, where the sound of grease-covered tools felt more like family than the silence in his home. His 6-year-old son, Lucas, darted between the two lifts, squatting down to peer under an old truck. Today would have been just another day when an unfamiliar black luxury car glided into the lot, flashing its pristine, polished surface against the summer sun. The driver emerged, a sharp-suited man with a dismissive gaze. Jake sensed the judgment in Tom's raised eyebrow, a contrast to the respect his hands earned him among their small community. As Lucas approached with bright eyes, innocently breathless, he chirped, "Please marry my mom." A pin-drop moment found Jake's heart racing, the tender weight of his son's innocent words crashing down around him. Memories flickered, 2 years buried, yet still sharp. The love, the loss, the swallowing grief. Jake felt the tightening anxiety coil around him, but he swallowed hard and forced a smile. His son had meant no harm. Weeks slipped by, the rumbles of engines becoming their shared symphony, while the distance between Jake and Tom gradually morphed into an understanding forged through quiet observations. Tom witnessed something wild behind the context of Jake's grease-stained hands, the way he effortlessly explained the workings of a car to Lucas, each lesson laced with hope and tenacity. Yet, vulnerability in their conversations exposed a deeper, anxious star within Jake. Would his struggles ever allow him to provide more, or would it trap Lucas alongside him, confined inside this mechanical world? Time pushed forth, and then a storm rolled through. Thunder cracked, rain lashed against the garage roof, unraveling the bones of the structure. The following morning unveiled a flooded concrete floor and the unmistakable smell of lost dreams filling the air alongside drying leather. Panic surged in Jake's chest. How would he make ends meet now? The bills were already piling, and his only focus had been keeping Lucas's childhood buoyant amid sloshed finances. "Dad, can we fix our truck?" Lucas's bright eyes searched his father's face, filled with pure eagerness and belief. But Jake's heart felt heavy, smothered by despair. His entire livelihood hinged precariously on a mayfly's wing, about to shatter. Just as Jake pondered giving up the dreams he had for both of them, Tom appeared in the doorway. The businessman hesitated before offering a lifeline, but it came tied with a string. "I can help." The words rolled softly, but Jake sensed the conditions hidden beneath. Would accepting aid from the very man who judged him only weeks before erode the diamond layers of his pride? As anxiety stretched taut within him, Jake vacillated between anger and gratitude. Would he let this man see him broken? Old habits crept in. Should he show that willingness to bend, or maintain the resilience he'd encapsulated for so long? Torn between his son's hopeful query and his own dignity, darkness and light warred in his mind. Could reverberating guilt overshadow what it meant to truly support Lucas? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can, leave a like. It really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The emotional weight bore down harder with every moment Jake reflected. Eyes caught on Lucas's innocent smile. Uncertainty lingered, vibrating throughout as a spectator in their lives. One son in contrast with a father barely holding on. What came next would demand Jake confront his core beliefs as a man, father, and worker, testifying to whether he would find the courage within to confront the gray landscape where privilege and survival spiraled into a tenuous friendship. And as long as Lucas looked up at him with that fervor, Jake knew decisions ahead would be far from simple. The urgency clawed at Jake as he faced the reality of Tom's offer. The air in the garage felt thick, tense with unspoken words. He could easily replay the moments that had led him here. His dreams of providing a stable life for Lucas, the countless hours spent turning wrenches, and the crushing weight of being a single parent. Yet now, the very idea of accepting help from Tom sent icy doubt coursing through him. Did doing so signify defeat? As the initial shock faded, Jake acknowledged the dwindling options before him. There was pride, and then there was survival. It seemed he was caught in a tug of war between the two. Lucas deserved a father who could create a pathway toward their hopes, not merely in the garage, but as a figure of strength and assurance in every facet of his life. Could he afford to let that slip through his fingers? "Let me think about it," Jake replied, and even to his own ears, it felt like a half-hearted attempt to shield his ego. He turned to Lucas, who was oblivious to the mental storm brewing around them, his eyes wide with wonder as he tinkered with a few discarded parts on the floor. Jake's heart swelled with warmth seeing his son embrace creative curiosity. Lucas had little understanding of the financial distress surrounding them, his world revolving around toy cars and dreams of one day fixing something bigger than themselves. This was what Jake wanted, an unblemished childhood for his son, not tainted by the fears that loomed over. Yet, reality crept back in, painting shadows against that vision. As he worked on the rain-soaked garage, fighting through the mud and the remnants of broken hopes, Jake began to notice that a shift was taking place in his outlook. Tom's presence, once imposing, gradually transformed into something more than just a source of external judgment. Jake recognized the man showed willingness in his own way, an opportunity not to tear him down, but to help him rebuild. He knew that if he could set aside his pride, he could forge an alliance that extended beyond mere transactions. In the days that followed, as the summer sun intermittently broke through the clouds overhead, Jake found himself weighing his options more objectively. What if he learned something from Tom, not just about business, but about his own vulnerabilities? And more importantly, what if he continued to let fear chain him in place? He could either grasp this chance or watch his ambitions wash away. After hours spent cleaning the garage and mulling over his decision, Jake finally sought Tom out. The businessman was leaning against his car, flipping through some documents, an air of patient waiting about him. With a deep breath, Jake stepped forward, heart racing but resolute. "Let's talk," he said, the words barely escaping his lips, but they came out steady, fueled by newfound determination. Negotiating terms felt like setting a course for an unknown sea, guided only by faith. There was a vital lesson to learn, not just about survival, but about collaboration, humility, and transcending old wounds through willingness. Tom's smile caught Jake off guard, a flicker of encouragement and genuine respect shifting in his expression. They stood there, two men from seemingly opposite ends of the spectrum, meeting in a moment that held the promise of change. What Jake could not foresee, however, was the impending conflict that would soon arise, one that would make him question the depths of trust and potentially reshape the trajectory of both his and Lucas's lives. The air thrummed with possibilities as they ventured to explore their contrived partnership, and Jake realized that what he thought was a simple arrangement could morph into something profoundly transformative. He had taken the first shaky steps toward bridging the chasm between fear and action, yet in the depths of uncertainty lay questions that still pierced through the veil of new beginnings. Could he truly alter the fate he had resigned himself to? But even more pressing, would he emerge steadfast enough to shield his son from the consequences of their choices? Jake sat across from Tom in the small, cluttered office that had once felt oppressive but now seemed brimming with the potential for growth. The faded walls were lined with old posters, remnants of a vibrant past, whispering to him that change often came from unexpected places. He scrutinized the business proposals laid out before him, feeling the weight of his decision pressing down like 1,000 dripping rain clouds. "Look, Jake, I understand how tough things have been," Tom said, his voice steady yet empathetic. "But if you really want to succeed, you have to let go of the illusion that asking for help is a weakness." Jake frowned at the assertion. Was he clinging to a false ideal of self-sufficiency, unable to acknowledge that every great journey required support? Tom's words flicker through Jake's mind like headlights in the dark. Each illuminating moment peeled back layers of his stubborn pride. He had built an identity rooted in independence. He was not just a mechanic, but a father fighting against the tide. By accepting Tom's offer, was he abandoning that identity, or was he transforming it? He turned inward, confronting the confusion that plagued him. Losing his grip on control felt like ceding the very foundation on which he stood. But what if he viewed this differently? Perhaps embracing this partnership was not about relinquishing control. It could be a strategic move, a way to strengthen his position. "What's the first step if I decide to go along with this?" Jake finally asked, the tremor of vulnerability breaking through his resolve. Tom leaned back, a glimmer of approval dancing in his eyes. "Let's start small. We'll work together on a few projects. I'll mentor you, and you can handle the repairs and customer management. You'll have the chance to learn and grow, and you'll get direct experience in running a business." Jake's heart raced at the proposition. Could this be the pivot he had desperately searched for? The haunting fear of failure began to fade, replaced by a burgeoning hope. Handling repairs was his forte. It felt like an extension of himself. But intertwining it with communication and management, those were paths he had scarcely trodden. "Okay," he breathed, the word more a catalyst than a commitment. The prospect of learning new skills ignited a faint spark within him. "I'm in." A sense of exhilaration stirred, yet somewhere beneath it lurked the underlying anxiety of the unknown. This was a chance to refine his abilities, but it also nudged at the edges of his comfort zone, threatening to unravel the very fibers of who he thought he was. In the days that followed, Jake found himself burgeoning with a quiet intensity. He started to attend meetings with Tom in local businesses, slowly adapting to the new rhythms of entrepreneurship. Each encounter unearthed insecurities. Would they see him as just another mechanic, a narrow-minded father fixated solely on repair? Still, as he engaged with clients and navigated their needs, a sense of competence began to take root. He recounted his own experiences, anchoring his conversations in genuine connection. Within the dialogue lay a revelatory message. He was not solely defined by his struggles, but also by his capacity to relate to others, to understand their narratives. By the time they completed their first project, it felt monumental. The car had been transformed, not just in its mechanics, but a testament to Jake's evolving identity. Lucas watched with wide eyes, excitement bubbling from within as his father shared stories about the process. The boy's admiration was palpable, a mirror reflecting the pride that now surged within Jake. Yet, as their partnership flourished, doubt began to creep back in like fog on an autumn morning. Tom suggested they consider expanding to a larger operation. A gnawing fear festered behind every suggestion, pushing Jake to confront whether he was truly ready to elevate beyond his daily struggles. Would success make him lose sight of the core values he wanted to instill in Lucas? Jake's pulse quickened as he sensed a turning tide, realizing that soon enough he would have to decide whether to step into the unknown with both feet or retreat to the safe, familiar shadows he had known for so long. The stakes were higher than ever. He could reshape his future, but at what cost? The next conversation with Tom loomed heavy in his thoughts, each moment morphing into a mounting pressure. What lay ahead was the ultimate test of his character, foreshadowing a clash between ambition and the values he held dear. Would he embrace the breakthrough, or would he falter at the threshold of his own potential? As he braced for the impending discussion, a singular truth glimmered. The time had come to face his greatest insecurity head-on. Jake's chest tightened as the clock ticked toward his meeting with Tom. The shadows in his mind danced, taunting him with their insinuations of inadequacy. What if he was simply unworthy of the success he so desperately craved? What if he failed to seize this opportunity and let Tom down? Each thought clawed at his resolve, urging him to cling to the safety of his current existence. As Jake arrived at the office, the familiar clutter seemed to echo his internal chaos. He took a deep breath, recalling the progress he had made. Each small victory in the past weeks had begun to shift his perception of himself. Engaging with clients had become less daunting, and explanations about repairs flowed more seamlessly now. Still, questions loom. Could he truly handle a larger business? If he pushed for growth, what would his relationship with Lucas look like? Family or ambition? Could he balance both? Ready for our chat? Tom's voice broke through his haze. There was warmth in the mentor's eyes, a reassurance that told Jake he was not alone. The two settled in, and Tom wasted no time addressing the elephant in the room. Jake, I believe we're at a crucial juncture. Growing the business means more responsibility, more opportunities, but it also means risk. We need to talk about what that means for you. Jake's pulse quickened at the mention of risk. Risk had previously felt like a character flaw, a slippery slope into fiascos. But today was different. He hadn't just been repairing cars. He had been crafting relationships, telling stories with each interaction. There was strength in vulnerability, even for a mechanic. What do you see as the biggest challenge? Tom asked, leaning forward. Jake could feel the weight of the question like a pressure cooker ready to explode. I worry about losing focus on what's important. I want Lucas to see me succeed, but also to know he's my priority. If we expand and I'm consumed with business, what happens to him? Tom nodded, his expression serious but encouraging. That's valid, Jake. You're not just a mechanic. You're shaping a legacy. But there's also nothing wrong with having a vision for growth. It doesn't mean you'll be absent. It means you'll be providing more opportunities for both of you. Don't let fear dictate your choices. Fear. It settled as a heavy blanket over Jake's shoulders, but there was a flicker of rebellion against that weight. Perhaps Tom's perspective was precisely what he needed to ignite a new way of thinking. There was greater purpose in expansion than just numbers or profits. It could empower him to be the father he envisioned, to create a life for Lucas that would inspire him. Jake leaned back, piecing together the fragments of his thoughts. What if we take it gradually? I could manage smaller projects while I assess the workload. We could test the waters. At least that way I would have a sense of control over everything. Tom grinned, the look in his eyes a testament to Jake's growth. That's a sound strategy. You're starting to think like a business owner. Let's draft a plan that balances your ambition with your responsibilities at home. We can gradually introduce more clients and increase operational capacity as you feel comfortable. As they plotted out the next steps, excitement surged within Jake, bold, exhilarating, and, yes, terrifying. He could now envision himself leading, managing challenges without losing touch with his son. He would forge success on his terms without sacrificing bonds that meant the most. Still, unease lingered like an unresolved chord in a symphony. The question remained, could he genuinely navigate both these worlds without compromising one for the other? He could feel the throbbing pulse of possibility mixed with ambiguity. With their plans outlined in neat strokes, the meeting came to a close. As they stood to leave, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was a beginning, a promise to carve out a path where he could thrive both as a mechanic and a father. Yet, as he walked out, a cloud of doubt hovered just above. Had he truly committed to this new vision, or was it merely wishful thinking? A reflection of his inner turmoil flashed in his mind. The moment of truth had arrived. Next week, he would need to take a step that could change everything. But for now, the journey remained uncharted, and uncertainty loomed large. Would he find the courage to steer toward this horizon, or would he falter when the moment called for resolve? The following week, Jake stood in his shop, surrounded by a cacophony of sounds, the grind of wrenches, the hum of the overhead lights, and the distant roar of cars passing on the street. Each noise pulled him further into the reality of his choices, vibrating a nervous energy into his bones. Today was the day. It was time to put his plans into action. He couldn't allow the doubts that had clouded his mind to spiral anew. This was the moment to prove that he could wrestle ambition and family into harmony. As he surveyed the shop, his gaze landed on Lucas, sitting at the designated corner, engrossed in a coloring book. A surge of love and determination coursed through him. The image of his son brought clarity amid the storm of uncertainty. Lucas was the embodiment of everything Jake strived for. If he could expand the business, he would provide more than just financial stability. He would set an example of resilience, dedication, and a willingness to embrace change. He recalled Tom's words about gradually introducing new projects. Leaning against a nearby workbench, Jake pulled out his phone, hesitating only briefly before dialing the number of a local business owner who had been interested in collaborating. Each ring echoed his racing heart, but determination drowned out the nerves that gripped at his throat. When the voice on the other end finally picked up, Jake felt a rush of adrenaline. "Hey Sam, it's Jake from the auto shop," he started, feeling the edges of anxiety soften as he spoke. "I wanted to discuss that project we talked about last month, the community car repair drive. I'm ready to move forward with it." As he outlined his ideas, a sense of empowerment surged within him, one that eclipsed the fears that had tormented him during his meeting with Tom. This wasn't just a business transaction. It felt like a mission. The anticipation in Sam's voice mirrored Jake's own excitement. They discussed logistics, potential sponsorships, and how both their businesses could benefit. After hanging up, Jake allowed himself a moment of reflection. The act of reaching out, of taking a step forward, ignited a flame inside. He felt the weight of expectation shift, and for the first time, it felt like a responsibility he could bear. He wasn't just a mechanic worried about failure. He was a father forging a better path for his son. However, as the high wore off, the echo of doubt returned, whispering about what this would mean for his balance. The question of time surfaced yet again. The prospect of community-driven projects was thrilling, but would they consume him? "Dad?" Lucas's voice shattered the silence. Jake looked down to see his son, crayons scattered around, eyes wide with curiosity. "Are we still going to the park later?" The simplicity of Lucas's question grounded him. "Of course, buddy. We have the rest of the day after work." A sense of responsibility washed over him. The commitment he made today didn't require him to lose sight of his role as a father. In fact, he could involve Lucas in these plans. Maybe they could make it a family effort, something they could both be proud of. Perhaps mentoring could also extend to Lucas, shaping him away from insecurities toward a path of confidence and engagement with the world. Driven by this revelation, Jake spent the rest of the day structuring his approach, incorporating Lucas's involvement into the bigger picture. As the shop closed, Jake's heart was a mix of elation and concern. He felt empowered, but also acutely aware that the path ahead was filled with challenges. The tension of possibility resided deeply in him. Would integrating his son into his ambitions prove fruitful, or would the effort deepen the rift he feared? Before shutting down the lights, Jake glanced at his son, still scribbling away. The image of Lucas with innocent determination resonated in his chest. He realized for the first time there was strength in sharing vulnerability, strength even in uncertainty. Only time would tell how their journey would unfold. As he locked the door behind him, Jake's determination surged. Tomorrow would be the true test of commitment. It was an opportunity to prove not just to himself, but to Lucas, that their shared dreams could be both achievable and profound. Yet, lingering questions hung heavy as he drove home. What would be the price of this ambition? Would the road he chose lead to fulfillment or failure? Jake woke up the next morning feeling a mix of excitement and dread. The sun streamed through the window, illuminating the space as if casting a spotlight on his mission for the day. He had spent half the night mulling over his plans, all the elements swirling around in his mind like mechanics in a disordered workshop. The vision of Lucas, eager and inquisitive, haunted him. He wanted to show his son that strength lay in pursuing dreams, but also in confronting fears. After breakfast, Jake articulated his plan on a whiteboard propped against the wall. He listed objectives and resources, all designed to ensure the community car repair initiative would launch successfully. Each bullet point felt like a promise, an affirmation of his commitment not only to his career, but to his family. As he prepared to head to the shop, he caught Lucas watching cartoons, entranced by the animated world unfolding before him. It struck Jake then how precious these moments were. The urgency of their shared project intensified in his mind. It wasn't just about creating business opportunities. It was a chance to bond, to teach, and to learn together. In the shop, the air buzzed with anticipation. It was a day for groundwork, establishing connections and rallying support. Jake met with Sam, who had arranged a casual meeting with local business owners, presenting a united front for their repair drive. Jake felt a wave of hope wash over him as he stepped into the meeting space, the atmosphere bubbling with camaraderie and shared interests. Yet, as the discussions took form, doubt nagged at him. A voice echoed in his mind, one he was beginning to recognize as self-sabotage. What if his inability to balance fatherhood and entrepreneurship stretched too thin? At that moment, he noticed a few familiar faces, longtime clients who had transitioned into friends, smiling warmly in the crowd. They trusted him, believed in his talents. "Hey, everyone," Jake began, his heart racing as he introduced himself. "I'm excited to bring this project to life, a way to give back and show that we care about our community." Lively discussion ensued. Jake absorbed every piece of input, noting the passion and worth of collaborative effort. He reveled in how he could weave Lucas's involvement into this network, letting everyone know how it mattered to him. For the first time, he envisioned his son as an integral part of his ambitions. Groans buzzed in the background when ideas turned inward. Questions about costs and potential setbacks arose. Jake fought the urge to wallow in apprehension. With an inner resolve, he took a breath and addressed concerns head-on. If we utilize the resources we already have, materials and volunteers, we can minimize costs significantly. This isn't just an expense, it's an investment in our future, and I believe we're making a smart choice together. The meeting shifted after his statement. Faces turned thoughtful, realizing that this wasn't just about cars. It was about cultivating relationships within the very community where they all lived, loved, and raised families. As the meeting wrapped up, a few voiced their commitment not just to the project, but their willingness to help with logistics and outreach. Leaving the meeting, Jake felt a flush of exhilaration blend with lingering doubt. The stakes were undeniably high, but so too was the potential. He found solace in sharing vulnerability as others expressed their feelings not just about the initiative, but their own personal ambitions and struggles, something Jake had rarely embraced. When he returned home, he hugged Lucas tightly. "How about we brainstorm some ideas for the car repair drive together? We can even make flyers," he suggested, a gentle tug of hope weaving through his voice. Lucas's eyes sparkled with excitement, and it dawned on Jake that this was the beginning, not just for his business, but for a new family adventure. They would play a part in reshaping not only the cars in their community, but their own lives as well. As the two of them settled down for the evening, the laughter and brainstorming flowed freely. Yet, just as the air filled with enthusiasm, Jake couldn't shake the sense that the deeper emotional and familial connections they were fostering would soon face their own tests. Tomorrow would bring the first visit at a local business to gather supplies, a crucial step towards achieving their goal. However, uncertainty loomed. What challenges awaited them? And would they have the strength to face the unforeseen obstacles lying in wait? The next morning brightened over Jake's neighborhood, sending a gentle warmth through the kitchen. He could smell the distinct scent of coffee wafting through the air, his morning ritual that preceded each new chapter in his life. Today felt charged with exhilaration, punctuated by the throbbing ethical and emotional stakes he now wrestled with regularly. Jake sipped his coffee, relishing the moment of solitude before his new journey to a local auto supply store. He aimed to gather materials crucial for their repair drive. Yet the weight of uncertainty settled heavily within him. Could he balance small tasks with the larger vision he now felt he was responsible for? And what if the supplies fell short of what they needed? His phone buzzed. A text from Sam appeared on the screen. Ready for today? Let's make waves. It was motivation in its simplest form, yet it kindled the embers of his resolve. He felt a creeping sense of obligation and determination. His decisions had ramifications, not just on the project's success, but on Lucas's perception of him as a father and a role model. After seeing Lucas off to school, Jake took a moment to review their brainstorming notes, flyers, banners, a schedule for community outreach. It was both a tangible plan and a bonding activity. Yet he couldn't shake how, beneath it all, he was peeling back layers of himself that bore scars from past failures. Arriving at the store, Jake was greeted by a familiar face, Bobby, the owner, whose weathered hands testified to years in the business. Bobby smiled, but Jake could see an undercurrent of skepticism in his gaze. "What brings you here so bright and early?" the man asked, crossing his arms with an almost protective demeanor. "I'm starting a community car repair drive," Jake said, meeting Bobby's gaze with unwavering conviction. "I'd like to gather some supplies." Bobby's skepticism grew tangible. His demeanor shifted slightly. "This isn't just about collecting old tools, is it? What's your angle here? How do I know this isn't just scamming the good folks around here?" Jake felt a jolt of anger surge through him, churning into the dark corners where his self-doubt lurked. "I'm not here to take anything from anyone," he retorted, feeling a fierce protectiveness for the mission he had shaped. "I want to help. It's about more than just cars. It's about restoring trust, building relationships, and—" He paused, catching himself. Should he even disclose the personal elements? But he couldn't pull away from the path he'd started. "My son and I are involved in this too. I want to show him how reaching out can create a ripple effect in our community." Bobby's gaze softened, though it flickered with contemplation. "That's not the normal route. You know what it's like to put yourself on the line." Jake swallowed hard, the weight of vulnerability pressing down. "I do, but I want to create something better this time. I learned the hard way that being independent isn't always the same as being strong. It's okay to lean on others." Bobby nodded slowly, as if considering a promise embedded in Jake's words, inviting a sliver of understanding that hadn't existed before. "All right, let's talk numbers and what you need." As they discussed logistics, Jake felt a surge of relief mixing with a newfound sense of responsibility, the kind that forced him to recognize that he was indeed stepping out of his comfort zone. But as Jake left the store, arms laden with supplies and a prickling tension in his heart, he realized the real challenge lay ahead. What kind of father did he want to be? Could he truly transform the warmth of this day into a meaningful legacy for Lucas? Questions swirled ominously in his mind. Bobby's words echoed, "Put yourself on the line." That afternoon, as Jake prepped the living room to share the updates with Lucas, the air shifted again. How would his son perceive his efforts? Would this be a lasting change? Tonight could be the moment he either solidified their bond or risked pushing Lucas away by failing to fully embrace his role as a father. Jake leaned against a wall, heartbeat loud in his ears, considering just how tightly intertwined his ambitions now were with parenthood, not knowing that the unfolding narrative of their journey would soon reveal whether he possessed the strength to truly commit to both. But as night approached, shadows in Jake's mind whispered of the very real threats that lurked ahead, whispering doubts that wouldn't let him forget, at least not yet. Would he be able to confront them when the moment presented itself? Jake paced the living room, supplies scattered across the table, a testament to his intentions. He stacked paint cans next to old tools, his movements brisk yet uncertain. The thrill of planning had morphed into a looming weight as he rehearsed how he would present the day's events to Lucas. Would the supplies inspire enthusiasm or confusion? When Lucas finally bounded through the door, energy palpable, Jake felt a jolt of anxiety. "Hey, buddy, how was school?" he asked, attempting to cloak the tightening knot in his stomach. "It was great. We learned about outer space," Lucas exclaimed, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Jake envied that unfiltered joy, something he hoped to nurture rather than dampen. Jake steered the conversation gently. "I got some supplies today for that project we talked about, the car repair drive. What do you think?" Lucas tilted his head, processing. "The one where we fix people's cars, like superheroes?" "Exactly, superhero mechanics," Jake chuckled. But beneath the humor, he felt an urgency to convey the gravity of what they were undertaking. How do you explain to a child the complexities of community engagement without suffocating their imagination? He sat down beside Lucas on the couch, catching the boy's curious gaze. "We can help people who can't afford to fix their cars. It's important, and you'll be helping too." A small frown crossed Lucas's face. "But why do we have to do it? Can't they just go to a mechanic?" Jake hesitated. It was a fair question, one that demanded depth beyond a surface-level answer. Not everyone can afford a mechanic. Some folks are having a tough time, and we can be the ones to help, kind of like how we always lend a hand to those in need, right? Lucas nodded, but the doubt lingered. There was a chance he might see his father's decision as a burden rather than an adventure. The doubt gnawed at Jake. Was it too much to ask of Lucas, especially when he was still processing their family's changes? "Can I help today?" Lucas asked, the light in his eyes reigniting. Jake's heart swelled, a mixture of pride and realization. "Absolutely. Let's start with sorting the tools and figuring out what we need. I'll show you how to change a tire." As they dove into the task, Jake was acutely aware of how the simple act of working together created a bridge between them. Each tool they sorted was like a stitch in their reconnecting relationship. The act itself was transformative, feeding Jake's own growing sense of purpose. Hours slid by as they chatted about mundane things, school, friends, favorite ice cream flavors. But amid those conversations, Jake felt the stakes grow. He had to genuinely engage in this nurturing. It wasn't merely a project. It was a lifeline they were throwing out into the world. Afterwards, as Lucas drifted off to sleep, Jake lingered in the living room. Flashes of his past swirled, uncertainties resurfacing. Could he really manage this responsibility? His mind raced back to the conversation with Bobby, the lingering question of whether he was truly on the right path. The next day, with a stronger resolve, he shouldered his way forward, armed with fresh supplies and that newly forged bond. That morning, the sun streamed in brighter, the golden light hinting at possibilities beyond what he currently perceived. Yet deep down, a new worry settled in. What if these first steps back into his son's life felt more fragile than they appeared on the outside? Could he keep up this momentum? Or was he merely delaying inevitable disappointment for both of them? Jake took a shaky breath, bolstered by his ambitions. As he walked towards the front door, ready to face whatever lay ahead, something about the uncertainty of the journey sent shivers down his spine. The revelation hovered dangerously close. His commitment to Lucas was now irrevocably intertwined with his quest to make a meaningful impact. But would that impact survive the trials ahead? He felt the pressure of that very question as he stepped outside, the world opening up before him, drenched in potential and uncertainty. The morning air was crisp as Jake stepped outside, his breath visible in the chilly atmosphere. The world felt different somehow, vivid and charged with potential. Today was not merely about fixing cars. It was a test of his resolve. He clutched the tools, the weight of them grounding him, urging him to manifest this newfound purpose. Each time he turned the key in the ignition of his van, doubt whispered against the roar of the engine. What if no one showed up? Would the neighbors dismiss his efforts? He pushed those thoughts away as Lucas bounced into the vehicle, excitedly clinching a crumpled map of their neighborhood. "Are we going to find the cars today, Dad?" Lucas's optimism radiated, contagious enough to thaw Jake's lingering apprehension. "Absolutely. We'll be superheroes." Jake smiled, but anxiety brewed beneath. Would Lucas find joy in this work, or would he remember it as the time when Daddy took him on a wild goose chase while other kids played? The drive through their neighborhood was a parade of potential opportunities. Jake noted the scratched and rusted vehicles parked carelessly along the street. He started making mental tee-offs, assessing which cars could need their wheels turned or their batteries recharged. Yet, surfing beneath this mental wave was an unexpected surge of guilt for making Lucas miss out on typical childhood fun. Parking the van at the corner of Oak and Maple, they set to work. The first car they approached was a worn-out sedan. Its owner, a middle-aged woman, appeared surprised as they approached her. "Hi, we're offering free car repairs today. Can we help you?" Jake's voice slightly trembled, betraying his nervousness. Her guarded expression softened as she processed their intention. "Really? I mean, wow, that's very kind of you." As Jake prepared to examine the car, he noticed Lucas's eagerness transform into observation. The boy followed every movement, from Jake's careful inspections to the tools used in the repairs. It then struck Jake like morning sunshine cutting through fog. This was more than a simple project. It was an establishment of values, a lesson pulsing with the heartbeats of community care and responsibility. Perhaps simplicity was the key. With each tightened bolt and adjusted tire, Lucas's quiet questions pulled Jake into conversations about responsibility, the significance of kindness, and the reality that sometimes it takes a village, or in this case, a father and son, to make a difference. As they concluded repairs on the woman's car, a small crowd of curious neighbors assembled, drawn into the warmth of Jake's commitment. He felt a swell of pride. Maybe he was doing this right. Maybe they could be the superheroes they so admired. "Thanks, you two. You really helped me out here," the woman beamed. Jake nodded, but his gaze lingered on Lucas. The boy beamed back, a glimmer of newfound understanding reflected in his eyes, as if Jake's actions had ignited a spark he didn't quite grasp yet. However, amidst the fleeting triumphs, Jake felt an inexplicable tightness in his chest, a heralding unease. The interaction had shaken loose something deeper within him, the tangible fear that this newfound connection might falter under the weight of expectations. As they returned to their van, Lucas bubbling over with ideas for future projects, the contrast of urgency and hope crashed within Jake. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, the complexities of their lives swirling in his mind. Did Lucas want him to be a superhero, or was he just a father trying to make things right? What if merging these aspirations turned into a heavy task that endangered their fragile progress? Just then, Jake's phone vibrated in his pocket. As he reached for it, the weight of the moment pressed down on him. The message read, "Your supervisor wants to see you. Urgent." Jake's heart sank, and the uncertainty morphed into something darker. What awaited him at work? Would his dreams of being there for Lucas crumble under professional demands? As his mind raced, he vowed not just to become a father, but a partner in Lucas's growth. Yet with each step forward, more questions loomed. Each venture into the unknown tested not just their relationship, but his own stem of authenticity. He took a deep breath before starting the engine. The next turn awaited, and the stakes felt higher than ever. What would this week reveal? And more importantly, could Jake deliver on the promises he was making to Lucas? The weight of the week loomed as Jake navigated the familiar streets back home. The sun sank on the horizon, casting hues of gold and orange, a vibrant flux of possibilities, yet buried under palpable anxiety. What awaited him at work? Would he face backlash that could revert him to the shadows, suffocating his growth and the bond he had begun to forge with Lucas? Yet, amidst doubts and fears, the triumph of the car repairs lingered in his mind, its warmth wrapping around his heart like a worn, beloved sweater. Every smile exchanged, every word of gratitude whispered, reinvigorated Jake's resolve, each serving not just as a reminder of purpose, but as a testament to his evolving identity. Later that evening, as he sat across from Lucas at the dining table, another torrent of worries crept in. Could he demonstrate to his son the balance of ambition with parenthood? The drive to succeed as a capable mechanic and a present father felt both exciting and terrifying. Jake chewed on his food absently, immersed in this new dance of responsibilities between dreams and family. "Dad, can we make more superhero flyers?" Lucas's voice broke through Jake's thoughts, pulling him back to the present. Jake's heart swelled. "Absolutely, but how about we brainstorm something even bigger? We want to invite everyone to join our team." Lucas's eyes lit up, enthusiasm radiated. "Yeah, like a big superhero family." Jake chuckled, but within his warmed chest lay the inspiring pang of something transformative brewing. The simpler joys of crafting flyers signified the rich tapestry of interconnected aspirations taking root, the improving dynamic of venture and legacy intertwined intimately with fatherhood. The realization hit. His success was not merely about individual accomplishments. It translated into teaching Lucas the values of community and care, of dedicating oneself to amplifying others' needs. As the evening progressed, they dove into art supplies, brainstorming ideas for their community car repair. "Drive." Lucas beamed as he suggested catchy slogans, "Superhero mechanics to the rescue," and "Helping hands make strong hearts." Jake felt the stress filter away, replaced by the thrill of their shared creativity, the laughter flowing like a soothing balm over the chaotic currents of responsibility. Just as they finished their flyers, the sudden vibration of Jake's cell phone broke the night spell. A message illuminated the screen. "Tomorrow, meeting with supervisor at noon. Important, be prepared." His stomach dropped. Another twist awaited on the horizon. Jake studied Lucas's eager face, an innocent marvel encapsulating everything he cherished, and the affirmation of what they were trying to build together. What if he allowed fears about work to cloud their joyous venture? That night, Jake scribbled a note in his journal. Balance is the real hero. He needed to crystallize his dreams not just within business plans, but cemented alongside his identity as a father, an anchor through uncertainties. Upon waking, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. His morning ritual returned, benching doubts with vigor and clarity. If he craved something lasting for Lucas, he would have to exhibit that heroism in the face of trials, showcasing not just success, but resilience as well. At their local coffee shop before the meeting, Jake sat steeling himself for the confrontation. The air buzzed with the chatter of patrons, the caffeine-fueled world growing with every passing moment. As he waited, he reflected on how much had transformed within him, wrestling with fears and possibilities. The people in his life, the very community he yearned to uplift, were intertwining threads of purpose in his narrative. As he entered the dim conference room, his supervisor's stern presence loomed. There was no denying the stakes felt exponentially higher today. "Jake, your recent activities have become a topic of discussion," his supervisor began, scrutinizing him closely. Jake's heart thumped in his chest. Had the community involvement backfired? Would his professional identity betray him? But pushing those fears aside, he shifted in his seat, leaning in resolutely. I believe it's important to contribute to the community, especially as a local business owner. The supervisor raised an eyebrow, but he appeared intrigued. Tell me more about your vision. As he spoke, recalling the support Lucas provided, the excitement of the repairs, and the bonds he had begun to forge, Jake's words tumbled out with a newfound confidence, the gravel barriers of anxiety falling away. He deftly articulated how outreach could synergize with his business, ultimately enhancing customer loyalty and goodwill. The ensuing dialogue felt collaborative, a dance between openness and determination as they hashed out strategies for channeling community projects into viable business growth while preserving their core values, a rare balance and resilience that Jake had begun to embody. When the meeting concluded, Jake emerged not only with ideas, but renewed support from his supervisor. They had established a partnership, and a voice whispering deep within reminded him that he could embrace both ambition and fatherhood without sacrificing one for the other. Returning home, he found Lucas sprawled on the couch, clutching a completed superhero flyer. The boy looked up, eyes gleaming with pride. Dad hugged him tightly, a deep swell of fulfillment nested within his chest. The bond they had built transformed not only their immediate environment, but also became the foundation for something greater. Neither can I, Lucas. You're my superhero partner. In that moment, Jake realized that they had crafted more than just flyers or community events. They had reignited a legacy of hope, integrity, and connection, a testament that true growth can flourish even amidst uncertainty. He had turned the corner. There was no turning back, only forward toward their familial expedition into uncharted territories. As they began to draw more flyers for their endeavors, Jake captured a fleeting moment on the wall, his son's creative strokes serving as embers that ignited his journey. He had overcome the fears that loomed, realizing that vulnerability could be his greatest strength. Tomorrow would be another day of challenges and victories, but it would also be a day of demonstrating that the pursuit of dreams, both personal and relational, could lead to profound transformations. With the last stroke of color, Jake knew they were ready, not just for the next day, but ready for whatever came next in this journey of life and legacy. Now more than ever, they were a family of heroes determined to shape the world around them with both courage and compassion. Together, this is the moment where you need to subscribe now to ensure you never miss a powerful story of transformation. Hit that like button now to help us feed the algorithm and share your thoughts in the comments. Let us know how this inspiring journey resonated with you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes a real difference in spreading stories of overcoming adversity. Together, this is the moment where you need to subscribe now to ensure you never miss a powerful story of transformation. Hit that like button now to help us feed the algorithm and share your thoughts in the comments. Let us know how this inspiring journey resonated with you. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes a real difference in spreading stories of overcoming adversity.